What is going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, but of course you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the Juice Alert. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that great stuff. If you enjoy this show, be sure to leave me some good feedback in the comments. Like this episode, share it with your family and friends, all that great stuff. Also, if you are not following me or this show on social media, please take some time out of your day to do so. If you really support me, I would greatly appreciate that. Would love to connect with you guys on social media and things of that nature and really grow my brand and the brand of this show in general. It's a win-win for all of us. It's been a while since I've, come on my show and gave you guys some great takes because I just haven't been, active here of late, but I'm back and we're going to ride some momentum over these next couple of weeks, months, and hopefully years to come as I speak. But today, we're going to address some NFL topics. And so I want to start off the show by discussing Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. When you look at the San Francisco 49ers, you look at the roster, you look at the coaching staff, you look at the, quarterback Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. But what's the big storyline with this team? To me, it's Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is the guy that's the head coach of this football team that has to put all the ingredients together. Not too long ago, I said that Kyle Shanahan was overrated as a head coach. I don't believe he's in that elite category quite yet. However, Kyle Shanahan is starting to grow on me a little bit more. But let's just look at the big picture. Does Kyle Shanahan need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl? Keep in mind, folks, everyone talks about how, Shanahan is great. He's getting the most out of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's getting the most out of now Brock Purdy. But keep in mind, people, Shanahan at one point said no to Tom Brady. He never once entertained Aaron Rodgers, who has said multiple times, if he didn't want to be in Green Bay, he would have entertained going to San Francisco. In fact, San Francisco was the team that should have drafted Aaron Rodgers back in 2005. It's always seemed like Aaron, has had a little bit of a soft spot for the Niners in his heart as far as the potential of playing in San Francisco. And same thing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady grew up, a big Joe Montana fan. You get the point. See, but here's the thing. Everyone these days, when it comes to relationships, let's talk about dating and relationships, because when you're a quarterback and a head coach, that's a relationship that's on display for the public to see. So everyone says, I want a smoke show. Bro, I want to have great sex. I want all that great stuff. I want a 10 out of 10. See, in the NFL, when it comes to quarterbacks, if you want that star quarterback, that 10 out of 10, there's a lot that comes with that no one really talks about, okay? Because to a degree, there can be a power dynamic shift within that building. Kyle Shanahan, if he were to have a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers or an elite quarterback in his room, Kyle Shanahan more than likely is not going to be the biggest personality in the room anymore. I think that honestly, one of the reasons why Kyle Shanahan has praised Brock Purdy so much and why he's praised Kirk Cousins so much is because, for one, he believes in their skill set, but also because Kyle Shanahan looks at those guys and says, they fit what I want to do, and in the end, secretly, there's a good balance because I believe in them, but they also really need me. See, Kyle Shanahan seems like he's the type of guy that is going to say, I want Red Robin, and I want Red Robin now, and I don't want any pushback. Just like Kyle Shanahan is going to tell Brock Purdy, that, hey, I want to run this play. I don't want any pushback. No added incentives. This is what we're going to do. Meanwhile, if this were Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, guys that have a lot of say, guys that have a big personality, guys that have been star quarterbacks for a long time, have accomplished a ton, really, really smart people, they're going to say, nah, I don't want Red Robin today. I want Roof Chris. And on the way there, I want a photographer taking photos of us with nice outfits on. Make it happen. And if you don't make it happen, Kyle, guess what? I'm going to go public about this. I'm going to pout. I'm going to make your life harder. You're not going to get any tonight. And boy, oh boy, man, let me tell you, because listen, people, when Aaron Rodgers didn't get his way in Green Bay, you heard about it from within the media. And Aaron Rodgers always seemed to want to have input in his offense, and rightfully so. Aaron has a great resume. He's arguably the most talented thrower of the football of all time. He deserves that type of input. You look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady and Bruce Arians had kind of a power dynamic shift when Brady was in Tampa Bay, where Bruce Arians wanted to run his offense. Tom Brady wanted the offense more catered towards him. Eventually, Bruce Arians had to put his ego aside and say, okay, you win, Tom, and it worked out. They won a Super Bowl eventually. And Aaron Rodgers has had a lot of success in his career as well. But see, here's the thing, people. I really truly believe Shanahan, deep down, wants to be the biggest and smartest guy in the room. And Kyle Shanahan has that right, people, because he's ultra, ultra talented. But in the end, do you want someone who's never going to give you pushback? Or do you want someone who's going to take risks with you? It's not going to be safe. And sometimes not being safe and being uncomfortable is the right route to go, because when everything's going on script, Shanahan looks great. But, oh, man, when the tires break down, when maybe Jimmy Garoppolo or a Brock Purdy needs to make plays out of structure, it needs to go off script. And if Kyle Shanahan's having an off day, can Brock Purdy or that said quarterback that's not elite elevate Kyle Shanahan? And the answer is, we really don't know, but it's trending towards the same old thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, I think Brock Purdy deserves a lot of credit for coming in, being mature, making the right throws. They've had success with Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy lacks that high-end upside. And does he really, truly challenge Kyle Shanahan day in and day out? I really don't think so, because I think between the relationship, Kyle Shanahan, as much as I love to crap on him, or I shouldn't say love to crap on him, as much as I criticize him and do so in an honest and fair way, Kyle Shanahan ranks higher at his position than Brock Purdy does, okay? Shanahan's one of the smartest, most creative offensive minds of recent NFL history. Brock Purdy, he's good, but is he ever going to be elite? We don't know. And when there's an imbalance in your relationship, you often grow frustrated. You grow tired. And I think that's what you saw with Kyle Shanahan when he had Jimmy Garoppolo. As much as he liked Jimmy Garoppolo's skill set, he couldn't deal with the limitations. And at one point, wouldn't let Garoppolo in the building to practice. And essentially kicked him to the door, wanted Trey Lance. And Trey Lance was, in a perfect world, going to solve everything for Kyle Shanahan, where he had the high upside, but at the same time, he was a young player that was growing, and eventually he could get to that level where, okay, maybe he's going to be elite, but unfortunately, the 49ers bailed on Trey Lance, and, it's one of those situations where they're left with Brock Purdy. And listen, I'm not ruling Brock Purdy out. All I'm saying is the jury is still out for Brock Purdy, and if he doesn't get it done within the next couple of years with this roster, when is Brock Purdy ever going to get it done? When you look at the 49ers roster, you say that is a very, very talented team that can instantly win a Super Bowl if everything breaks the right way. But will everything break the right way? We're not so sure. So when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, is Brock Purdy going to be the guy that eventually grows to help elevate Kyle Shanahan and be on the same level as Kyle Shanahan? Or is he going to be a guy that holds Shanahan back? Or can they be equal partners where, hey, Shanahan is okay with the fact that Brock Purdy maybe never is going to be elite. Maybe he's never going to be a dynamic thrower of the football. And Shanahan lives with the result, because Shanahan, in the end, secretly kind of has a little bit of the power. We'll see. I'm very, very fascinated to see how this Brock Purdy experiment works out for the 49ers, because if it were not for Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan might have been screwed, because If Trey Lance was never going to be the guy in San Francisco, they really didn't have a great contingent plan after Trey Lance. But Brock Purdy comes along. He's had some success. And I'm very, very interested to see how this dynamic shifts and what goes on for the 49ers, with Brock Purdy as their quarterback and Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. Does Kyle Shanahan actually need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl? I'm going to take the latter part and say yes. But in the end, we've seen quarterbacks like Nick Foles in the past who, have kind of been journeymen in the NFL. Nick Foles messed around and won a Super Bowl at one point. I know Eli Manning's going to make the Hall of Fame at some point, but was Eli Manning ever truly an elite quarterback? I think that he played like an elite quarterback in certain moments in the playoffs, but year in and year out, never quite was that guy. So in order for the 49ers to win consistently and win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, I think a couple of things needs to happen. Number one, Brock Purdy needs to take a big leap forward. Number two, Purdy needs to take a big leap forward, maybe not necessarily year to year, but just in those big moments, when you need a big play on 3rd and 10, or that one Sunday where the defense isn't clicking and boom, you need to score 30 or 40 points. And also, the team around Brock Purdy has to be essentially perfect. Those are really the only couple of ways where I see the 49ers winning a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Again, not trying to crap on Brock Purdy. All I'm saying is the jury is still out. And the jury is still out on Kyle Shanahan too, because we're not sure how great Kyle Shanahan can be in these big games, because we haven't seen him win the Super Bowl yet. He's been to NFC Championship games. He's been to a Super Bowl and almost won that Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Jimmy Garoppolo's limitations kind of, limited Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers at that time. But I'm very, very interested to see how this story pans out going forward. The New York Jets, boy, oh boy, let me tell you, ever since Aaron Rodgers signed with that team, it's been a big-time roller coaster in New York. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Everyone rules the Jets out. They say, the season's over. They're going to be terrible. There's no contingency plan after Aaron Rodgers. Zach Wilson can't get it done. But you look at the New York Jets, and I'm here to tell you right now, people, the New York Jets are more than just the Aaron Rodgers show. There's a lot more to this team than Aaron Rodgers. I firmly believe whenever Aaron Rodgers comes back from injury, whether it be, the latter part of this year, which Aaron Rodgers has kind of hinted a little bit, don't really buy into that. But again, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that has in the past claimed to have a cure for COVID, and let's just dead those conversations in the back end of the water, okay? But, when Aaron Rodgers eventually makes his return, probably next year for the Jets at some point, I believe this is a Super Bowl caliber team, because Garrett Wilson, star wide receiver. They've got really good running backs. The defense is loaded with talent. This defense has the potential to be the best defense in the NFL for many years to come. And Robert Saleh, despite this team's limitations at quarterback, he continues to motivate. He continues to be a high-spirited guy. And he continues to try to find ways to win. Folks, the New York Jets, at the halfway point of the 2023 season, could be sitting above 500 without Aaron Rodgers. Because you look at their schedule, after this bye week, they play the Giants. I think they're better on paper than the Giants. They're going to be above 500 if they win that home game versus the Giants. The Jets are going to be above 500 potentially without Aaron Rodgers. And look, will this team make a deep playoff run without Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. Could they sneak in? Maybe, maybe not. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of great pieces here with the New York Jets. And I encourage Jets fans to just be patient. I understand that you were ready for Aaron Rodgers to come out there. He unfortunately got hurt. The cookies just have to bake a little bit longer. We may need to grab another batch and start things over a little bit. But I think this Aaron Rodgers thing is going to work out, because this team is not just about Aaron Rodgers. You look at the Green Bay Packers when Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback, for the most part, outside of a couple of years, where they had really great wide receivers, the defense was complimentary enough. I think that the early 2010s and around 2014, that was the time where the Packers were a little less Aaron Rodgers dependent. But outside of those 2 to 3 years in Green Bay, most of the time it was Aaron Rodgers or bust. It was either Aaron Rodgers plays great or we're screwed. That is not the case with the New York Jets. They're winning games with Zach Wilson at quarterback. And look, I think Zach Wilson has some talent, but Zach Wilson has been a roller coaster ride in the NFL. He's not been very accurate. He throws a lot of interceptions. He's getting a little bit better, but there's no argument to be made for Zach Wilson other than the fact that he's been one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL since he's entered the National Football League. And look, this Jets team has a lot of great pieces. They're a great watch. And I'm here to tell you right now, they are much, much more better than the New York Giants. The Giants are a mess. The Jets, they seem like they have their buttons together a little bit. It will all come down to how great can Aaron Rodgers be when he comes back? Whether that be at the end of this year or next year, but I truly believe this Jets team has something cooking. They're a well-run operation. They've got star wide receivers. They've got a star, player in Sauce Gardner on their defense. They've got the run game. Most of the pieces are coming together for the Jets. They do need to shore up that offensive line a little bit, but I believe what the Jets have, and they are much, much more than just the Aaron Rodgers show. This experiment could be something special if Aaron Rodgers comes back and is anywhere close to that bad man we know him to be. When it comes to the New York Football Giants, I just talked about how I think the Jets have surpassed them in New York right now. Now, in terms of press, popularity, sure, the Giants are going to win that battle every single time because the Jets, they're the B team in New York. That's just how it's going to be probably for the rest of everyone's lives, okay? But in terms of on-field performance, the Giants are just not very good. And I know they won a playoff game last year, but anyone that was willing to have an honest conversation about this team and the way they were trending, they were in for massive regression, and we're seeing it right here, right now. And let me just say, I never was a big Daniel Jones fan. I had no idea why the New York Giants drafted him. You could say, oh, well, Jamon, who else were they going to draft in that draft class? It was a weak draft class. Even if you didn't like Dwayne Haskins or a Drew Lock, that didn't mean you had to go and draft Daniel Jones. You could have maybe waited next year for Justin Herbert, who reportedly the Giants wanted in the first place. And Justin Herbert came back for another year at Oregon. They missed out on him. But even if I want a great car and I go to the car dealership and I don't see what I'm looking for, just because I made the 30-minute drive to this great car dealership, that doesn't mean I'm supposed to just pick out a car just because. Like, I'm going to be selective and be patient when selecting my quarterback. And I don't think the Giants ever needed to fall in love with Daniel Jones. They tricked themselves into believing this guy was going to be a great franchise quarterback one day. Hasn't been anything close. He's arguably the worst starting quarterback in the National Football League. But before I crap on Daniel Jones anymore, let me just say this. Daniel Jones has been set up to fail by the New York Giants. I don't know too many quarterbacks that will be able to overcome the dysfunction and the lack of talent on this roster. They have some good pieces on defense, but that offense, man, boy, oh boy, the offensive line, the wide receiver core, it needs a lot of work, people. And the expectations were sky high for Daniel Jones. He was booed on draft night. A lot of Giants fans deep down never believed he was going to be the successor to Eli Manning. And I just think that the expectations were way too high in the first place. The Giants put Daniel Jones in calculus when he needed to be studying basic math still. They put him in a situation where he was probably never, ever going to live up to the hype. Folks, if you know your child is not great at math and they're scheduled to take calculus, this upcoming year, get him a great tutor. Put a lot of great support around that kid, because if you don't, they're going to fail. And even if you put great support around them, they're probably just going to be a barely passing student. And you look at Daniel Jones, they've improved the coaching staff. Like, Brian Dable's a great coach, in my opinion. Maybe not great, but he's very good. He turned Daniel Jones from a failing student to a passing student. It was working a little bit. They won a playoff game with Daniel Jones. But I just think that Daniel Jones, Even though he showed improvement last year, he wasn't really throwing the football down the field. It was all fugazi. It was the Brian Dable and Saquon Barkley masterclass, where Saquon Barkley, who to me is arguably the best running back in football when healthy, really carried that offense. And Brian Dable's creativity and ability to help Daniel Jones not make mistakes, it allowed the Giants to skate by in a weird year. But the Giants they're in a bad spot. And Daniel Jones has had to endure the likes of Pat Shurmur as his head coach, Joe Judge. When you look at Joe Judge, that experiment was probably never going to work. Never understood why they hired that guy. And I just don't think the Giants, even if you put a guy like Justin Herbert in that situation, you look at Justin Herbert with the Chargers, he's not able to overcome their dysfunction. What makes you think he's going to overcome the dysfunction with the Giants? The Giants are a worse team on paper than the Chargers. So, look, all I'm saying is there's a problem with the New York Giants from top to bottom. Quarterback, front office, and the only scapegoat that I'm willing to give a pass to is Brian Dable, because I think Brian Dable has a chance to be a special NFL head coach. But Brian Dable is a 5-star chef that has been given 2-star ingredients. He cannot continue to make these 5-star meals with a limited quarterback at his disposal. And it's been a mess for the Giants, and I don't know where they go from here. And right now, today, you can argue Daniel Jones isn't even the best quarterback on his own roster. I mean, Tyrod Taylor has looked the part in the limited starts that he's had. So it's a mess. And I don't understand why the Giants decided to pay Daniel Jones a long-term contract. Why did they give Daniel Jones a long-term contract? I have no idea. All they simply needed to do was allow Daniel Jones to play one more season under Brian Dable and evaluate him from there. Why were they in such a hurry to pay Daniel Jones? Because it seems like you're selling for average at best. And to me, Daniel Jones is below average. To me, he's the worst starting quarterback in the National Football League. You could talk about the likes of Justin Fields, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell. I understand a lot of these guys have not been great up to this point, but they have much, much better upside than Daniel Jones. Even though Daniel Jones' floor might be higher than some of these guys, the upside just is not flatly there. It was never there. You didn't see it at Duke. The only person that probably saw it was Dave Gettleman, who's no longer even employed by the Giants. He really put his cookie in the jar and drafted Daniel Jones. I'm not sure what you should do if you're a Giants fan, because it's a very frustrating situation in my opinion, and the Giants front office will have a lot of work to do and a lot of hard questions they will need to answer going forward. When you look at Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones, I'm going to be short and sweet about this. I don't care that Daniel Jones was paid a crap ton of money this offseason. Daniel Jones is not the best quarterback on his roster. Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Keep in mind, people, not too long ago, several years ago, Tyrod Taylor led a very inexperienced Buffalo Bills team to the playoffs as their quarterback. Now, was he amazing? No, he was a game manager that just made occasional big plays when he needed to. But Tyrod Taylor has had success in the National Football League. Equally as much success, if not more success, than Daniel Jones. And let's just look at Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones side by side. Who's got the better arm? To me, I'd argue Tyrod Taylor is a more accurate thrower of the football. I see the throws being made, and I think he's more accurate. Decision-making, poise, leadership qualities. Tyrod Taylor's played a lot of football. I think he checks those boxes over Daniel Jones. You could say Daniel Jones is the better athlete at this point in his career, but Tyrod Taylor can move around a little bit too. And you just seen instantly in these two games where the Giants haven't scored a ton of points, I will admit that, but the offense just looks a lot better with Tyrod Taylor running the ship. And to me, it seems like Brian Dable trusts Tyrod Taylor to make high-level throws if he needs to, much more than Daniel Jones. It seems like Daniel Jones always had a pacifier in his mouth when Brian Dable was coaching him. And I think you got to let the pacifier loose. You got to take the training wheels off. But I think the minute you take the training wheels and the pacifier away from Daniel Jones, he's going to wreck the car. He's going to make mistakes, and we've seen it because even last year when Daniel Jones had success, He barely threw the ball down the field. Look at the statistics. Look at the advanced metrics. The Giants have barely any big plays on offense last year. Down the field, throwing the football was all underneath stuff. And it was Saquon Barkley carrying the offense. And to me right now, Tyrod Taylor is the better option at quarterback. He's a better decision maker. He's more accurate. He gets the ball out of his hands more quickly. He reads defenses at a higher level. And to me, the poise and the leadership qualities, I think he's better than Daniel Jones. And the Giants respond to Tyrod Taylor a whole lot better. The problem is Daniel Jones was a top 10 pick in his draft class. Had a lot of expectations within the Giants building. I'm not saying fans had a lot of expectations for him, but the Giants organization in that building, they believed Daniel Jones was going to be something. And he has not become anything noteworthy up to this point. It's been a lot of average and below average football being played by him. And so when you pay Daniel Jones all that money and it's been a glaringly obvious mistake, what do? At some point, you may need to trade the guy because it's a bad situation. A guy that's getting paid a crap ton of money is not even the best quarterback on your roster. It's a major problem, and the Giants have a lot of things they need to solve, and that is probably their biggest issue right there. Let's talk about Geno Smith briefly right here. You know, I had high expectations for Geno Smith in 2023 and beyond. I felt Geno Smith played at an MVP level in Seattle the first year the Seahawks were without Russell Wilson. And say what you want about Russell Wilson in Denver, it seems like his career is falling apart as we speak up to this point. You know, he's a declining player, but Russell Wilson was awesome in Seattle. Won them a Super Bowl, won a lot of games, had a lot of success. It was going to be very difficult for whoever was going to be the successor after Russell Wilson to kind of carry on that torch. And Geno Smith last year, I felt that he was playing at an MVP level. I think he had over 30 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions, completed about 70% of his throws. Geno Smith was playing at a very high level. And you look at Seattle, wide receivers, check mark. Defense, check mark. Offensive line, check mark. Running backs, check mark. Pete Carroll, great head coach, check mark. They check all those boxes off. They got the receivers, the defense, the offensive line, the running backs, and a great head coach in Pete Carroll that still has a couple more great seasons left in him. But despite the fact that the Seattle Seahawks have been winning some games, they just haven't quite looked the part. And I think one of the reasons why is because Geno Smith hasn't quite taken the leap that they've needed him to take. And let's be real, people. As good as Seattle's roster is, and boy, oh boy, do they got some star players on that roster. Geno Smith must step it up a notch if the Seattle Seahawks want to win a Super Bowl. Because they have the roster. They've got a Super Bowl winning coach that has a great resume. I think it all comes down to if Geno Smith can reach another level of success. Because I think Geno Smith is good, but can he become great? Can he turn it up a notch? Can he play at an MVP level when it matters the most? Because at some point, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you may have to go through, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes if you land in a Super Bowl. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, even Tua Tagovailoa is playing at an MVP level this year. Even in the NFC, Jared Goff playing at a pretty high level, has found new life in Detroit. Jalen Hurts was just in the Super Bowl last year and arguably outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that game despite losing. Matthew Stafford's won a Super Bowl. We've seen him beat Tom Brady on his way to a Super Bowl, beat a really good Bengals defense in the Super Bowl. And the 49ers defense is also going to be in your way. They're in your division. So, look, I'm not hitting the panic button with Geno Smith because I think the roster is really good. The coaching staff is really good. I think Geno Smith has found success in Seattle, and he's going to be a good starting quarterback for a couple more years at least. But does Seattle just want to be good, or do they want to be great? If they want to be great, Geno Smith must step it up a notch. I believe he is capable of it. However, as we've seen teams kind of make adjustments on Geno Smith where they've gotten more film on him, you know, they're understanding what he wants to do a lot better, and they've kind of been limiting him and making him make mistakes at times. Geno Smith will need to have a counter punch to where, okay, you know, let's see if I can make the adjustments from here on out. So I think Geno Smith has the talent to do so. But let me just tell you something right now. Seattle's got a lot of good young players, and it all really comes down to how good Geno Smith is, because you got no more excuses, okay? The offensive line has some depth, and it's very, very good when healthy. The running backs are really talented. The wide receiver core, name me 5 wide receiver rooms that are better than Seattle. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba. These are star players, people. Not to mention the defense is young and athletic and has really, really good young players. So, Geno, you got a defense, you got a run game, you got great pass catchers, you got a great coaching staff. It's now up to you to deliver and not write back like you promised Seattle fans when you became their quarterback from the jump. I want to talk about Desmond Ridder to end the show. I picked the Atlanta Falcons to make it back to the playoffs here in 2023 just because I believe they had a great offseason. Everyone craps on Arthur Smith as a head coach, and listen, he's not perfect. He is far from it. But Arthur Smith has been winning some games with some makeshift rosters as of late, hasn't really had the franchise quarterback that he's wanted, and he still finds ways to win a couple of games here and there. I think Arthur Smith is a little bit better than people give him credit for. And you look at the Falcons, everyone said, oh, the defense is going to be a big question mark. You look at the defense this year, they're only allowing 19 points per game. So you ask the question, okay, the defense has been better than advertised. What's the problem? The problem is the offense is averaging only 16 points per game up to this point in 2023. And they've got star players. Bijan Robinson, star player. Kyle Pitts, star tight end. Drake London, up-and-coming young wide receiver that has a lot of potential. The offensive line, they're one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL, in my opinion. They've got some good big boys up front in Atlanta. What's the common denominator holding this team back? Oh, it's the quarterback, Desmond Ridder. And listen, I said in the offseason, Desmond Ridder has been quickly put on the hot seat because the Falcons, they went all in on the offseason to help improve this team. They improved the defense. They've given him a star running back, good weapons to throw to. Not really many excuses, okay? Desmond Ridder is a glaring weakness for this team. There have been several games where the Falcons have had a chance to win, and Desmond Ridder has not come through in the clutch or has just kind of laid an egg and hasn't put together a great performance. Never really gave the team a chance to win. Now, I will say, after a slow start, Desmond Ridder is starting to improve a little bit. So I'm not writing Desmond Ridder off. All I'm saying is, up to this point, I look at Desmond Ridder and I say, bottom 5 quarterback. I mean, if you're starting a franchise today and all the quarterbacks were available for you to draft, where is Desmond Ridder going to go in that draft? Probably towards the bottom. I mean, even Baker Mayfield. Everyone crapped on Baker Mayfield this offseason. I'm taking Baker Mayfield over Desmond Ridder 9 times out of 10. Baker Mayfield's a better player. He's had a resurgence. Bryce Young in his division. I know Bryce Young's had a slow start to his career, but I watched both of these guys in college. Bryce Young is a more talented thrower of the football than Desmond Ridder. Imagine Bryce Young in the Falcons offense. I think Bryce Young would look a lot better than he has right now. So when it comes to Desmond Ridder, you can't make mistakes. You got to be more accurate. With these weapons, with this coaching staff, with this defense that's improved, you got to be better. And if Desmond Ridder actually can put it all together, I think the Falcons have a chance to make some noise because they legitimately have a good roster that is ready to win right now. Are they ready to win a Super Bowl right now? Probably not. They probably need to build the roster up for 1 to 2 more years, but this roster is on the upward trend. It will all come down to how good Desmond Ridder is. And to be clear, Desmond Ridder does not need to do anything crazy. He does not need to be playing at an MVP level for the Falcons to have success. It would help, but all Desmond Ridder needs to do is take care of the football, not make mistakes, and make the big plays when needed, maybe 2 to 3 times a game. And the Falcons, they're going to win a lot of games. So that is my advice to Desmond Ridder. I believe that he can improve a little bit, although I wasn't the biggest fan of him when he was at Cincinnati. But again, not ruling the guy out. All I'm saying is he will need to be much, much better if the Falcons want to reach their full potential. Well, folks, that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Jamon McKinney. Thank you so much. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this show with all your friends and family if you enjoy. Until next time.